Our final chapter, chapter 19, is the end of life stage. End of life is defined as that time period when healthcare providers would not be surprised if death occurred within about 6 months. Dying is a process. Older Americans with chronic illness think about how they would prefer their lives to end and want a good death without burdensome pain, symptoms, and technology. In previous centuries, when someone was injured or developed a serious illness, death followed shortly thereafter. Today, however, advances in medical care have extended lifespans. During the 20th century, the average lifespan increased by 30 years. But death is still the inevitable end. In the United States, only 50% of children born in the 1900s could reasonably hope to reach the age of 50. Life expectancy today is approximately 77 years of age, 73.6 years for men, and 79.4 years for women. Life expectancy is lower for African Americans, at 67.2 years for men and 74.7 years for women. 70% of deaths occur in people 65 and older. 63% die in hospitals, while 17% die in institutional settings such as long-term care facility. The leading cause of death is heart disease, and the second leading cause of death is cancer. There are 4 types of death. The first one we'll look at is clinical. Heartbeat and breathing have stopped in a clinical death. In brain death, the cortex of the brain and the midbrain fail, and the person enters irreversible coma. Autonomic processes, however, still work. A biological or cellular death is when no electrical charges are in the tissue. And social death is within the hospital setting when a patient is treated as a corpse, even though the patient is essentially alive. What do people fear about death? There are several reasons people fear death. Some fear pain and the symptoms that come along with death, anxiety about the death. They don't want to experience emotional suffering. They're concerned about their family, and they're also at times concerned that their advance directives or living will instructions will not be respected. Studies show that 33% of the elderly are in terrible pain 24 hours prior to death. Studies also show that 67% of the elderly are in terrible pain 30 days prior to death. Doctors often are unwilling to sign off because they're reluctant to accept the loss of a patient, and they want to preserve hope. Next, we will look at palliative care. Palliative care can be offered as an early intervention in the course of an illness, along with curative therapies meant to prolong life, as opposed to hospice care, which focuses primarily on comfort and is intended to cease all curative treatments. Hospice care is the end-of-life care provided by health professionals and volunteers. They give medical, psychological, and spiritual support. The goal of the care is to help people who are dying have peace, comfort, and dignity. The caregivers try to control pain and other symptoms so a person can remain as alert and comfortable as possible. Hospice programs also provide services to support a patient's family. Usually, a hospice patient is expected to live 6 months or less. Hospice care can take place at home, at a hospice center, in a hospital, or in a skilled nursing facility. Next, we will take a look at Elizabeth Kubler-Ross 5 emotional stages of dying. These stages do not come in any particular order, and someone can go back and forth between these stages of dying. The first one we'll look at is denial. This is a temporary response caused by the fear of death, losing a loved one, or fear of losing control and suffering. The next is anger, the injustice of death. Why me? Another stage is bargaining, the desire for more time. There's also a stage of depression, and then acceptance, facing the inevitable. As people approach the end of their lives, they want to resolve the following issues. They want to finish their life's work, settle things with friends and family, and reconcile with spiritual issues. Let's take a look at quality of life issues. The first one we'll look at is living wills. Living wills describe your care decisions if you're dying with little or no hope of recovery. There is also what's called advance directives. This is a document that expresses your healthcare wishes and preferences. It allows you to give specific information about your wishes. For example, whether you want feeding tubes, respirators, etc. Whites and Asians use advance directives more often than any other racial group. And then there is DNRs, which is do not resuscitate. There is also a durable power of attorney for healthcare. This names the person that you wish to make decisions for you when you cannot. There's organ donation, and some cultures, example Korean, expect that the eldest son will make all the decisions about the parent's end-of-life care. African Americans typically want aggressive treatment in their end-of-life care. Next, we will take a closer look at hospice care. Hospices serve primarily whites at 83%, Native Americans at 6%, African Americans at 8%, and Hispanics at 3%. This is according to the National Palliative Care and Hospice Organizations of 1995. In June of 1997, the Supreme Court held that assisted suicide is not a constitutionally protected right, and that its legality is left up to the states. Grief is the composition of thoughts and feelings that one feels after sustaining a loss. Mourning is the process one takes of moving towards healing. Grief happens within the person, while mourning happens externally. Anticipatory grief involves depression, a heightened concern for the sick person, a rehearsal for death, and an attempt to adjust to the consequences that are likely to occur after death. Oftentimes, grief is viewed as something one needs to overcome or avoid, not experience. Someone who shows outward signs of grief can be perceived self-pitying or weak. The truth is that grief needs to be experienced, not repressed, for healing to ever take place. The truth is, we never get over our grief. We only become reconciled to it.